One of the seven Noahide laws very clearly states that shedding the blood of man within man is murder, means abortion. So abortion is forbidden according to the seven Noahide laws. And the government that comes out and makes a statement, an official policy, that we approve of abortion is not going in the right direction. So when the states start to reverse themselves and take abortion more seriously, that is a very good sign. Because they tend to go to extremes. It's either all or nothing, which is, of course, not kosher. If the mother's health is threatened, then having the abortion is a mitzvah. So you can't just have all or nothing rulings about abortion. But the fact that people are, at least taking it seriously, like there should be some limits, depends on what age, how far along, there's got to be some responsibility there. And, one state after another is picking up the issue. Hopefully it's not just political, and it really is a moral question. This is a very good sign. And totally unexpected. I mean, why all of a sudden? Abortions have been legal for so long. What happened all of a sudden? So I'm sure we can find some explanation, but it really looks like a moral shift, which is a sign of Mashiach. So that would be very, very good. Because I think, just a theory, since abortion became legal, and it became more and more legal, where even at a very late stage, it's perfectly acceptable. Somehow, the entire respect for life, the sanctity of life, uh, got much, much weaker in the country in general. Loss of life is not so serious, and mercy killing and suicides. The respect for life really took a beating, and it started with the fetus. What do you call life, and who says it's life, and even if it is life, the mother's life comes first. So the next step, logically or illogically, the next step is, so for political reasons, if a few people die, it's not so terrible because there are bigger issues. There are bigger issues. So we need to go back to the sanctity of life, whatever that means. What is the sanctity of life? What is so special about being alive? It's a good question. It's a very good question. Questions that we were afraid to ask in the past. But now we got to ask. Life is sacred, but who knows what that means? And how did it get to be sacred? What makes it that way? So I want to share with you a very mystical, beautiful concept. Every every righteous leader from biblical times on were always defending the people to God. When the Jews made the golden calf in the desert and God was very angry, Moses defended them, and successfully. That's how Yom Kippur came to be. The day that God forgave the Jews because of Moses' intervention became the day of Yom Kippur for every year. So every year there is forgiveness on that day. So it's always the role of the tzaddik, of the holy people, that they defend the sinners, they defend the non-tzaddiks. But there was one very special tzaddik in the city of Berdichev in the Ukraine, and he was famous for his defense of his fellow Jews. And one year before Rosh Hashanah, he said to God, "How does it look that I, Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, have to remind you to be good to your own children? It don't look good. They're your children, and you're the father. So I have to ask you to be good to your children." He says, "I'm a father. I don't need anybody to remind me to be good to my children." It was a beautiful, beautiful. And so the conclusion was, you don't need me to ask, just do your thing, be a father, and take care of your kids. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe at that time, the Chabad Rebbe at that time, and they were related through marriage, quoted the Berditchever rabbi, but then he said, the truth is, we do have to ask. Of course, God would do it on his own. But we do need to ask. Why? By asking, we become more receptive. When you ask a question and get an answer, the answer is much more meaningful because you asked. If somebody had come along and given you the same information when you were not asking, it wouldn't have the same impact. Because when you ask, you become receptive. You become the vessel into which the blessing can settle. Otherwise, the blessing will come, you may not even notice. So we do need to ask. Actually, that is the feminine side of the relationship. God is the provider, that's the masculine side, and we are the recipients of those blessings, so we are the feminine side. The feminine has to be receptive. So we do need to ask. Even for blessings we know what we're going to get. Without a question, without a doubt, of course. But if you don't ask, then you don't get it. It's given to you, but you don't get it. Which means you don't absorb it, and then, like a woman getting pregnant, you not only absorb, you turn what you received into a whole new being. You nurture it into a healthy human being. So when God gives us a blessing, it's not enough to just be blessed. Every blessing can be nurtured into a bigger blessing. But you can't nurture if you didn't ask for it. You can't nurture if you didn't anticipate, look forward. So the famous prophet Samuel was born after his mother prayed for a child. And his mother then composed this beautiful poem, which is part of the biblical script. And she said, after he was born, "This is the child for which I prayed." Anybody can have a child without praying. Some people pray not to, and they have one anyway. Uh, so, what is the significance? This is the child I prayed for. You don't really have to pray. People have children all the time without praying. So she was saying there's a difference. There's a huge difference. Everyone receives blessings, but what you prayed for, the blessings that you asked for, that you yearned for, that you anticipated, that's different. That kind of a blessing can grow up to be the greatest of the prophets. The prophet Samuel, a whole 2 books of the Bible are on his name. That's even better than my son, the doctor. In those days, that's probably how mothers how mothers would compare their children. My son, the prophet. Oh yeah, how big a prophet is he? How many times is he mentioned in the Bible? How many books are named after him? As I say, did he go to Harvard or to Yale or Oxford? Boy, our values have changed. But that is the idea. The idea is that on the one hand, we have to be absolutely confident and absolutely certain and absolutely trusting God will give us everything we need because he knows what he's doing, whether you ask for it or not. Then why ask? Because you got to complete the relationship. Giving without receiving is not a full relationship. Because asking and not getting is also not very satisfying. But when you ask and get, that's perfect. So we have to hunger for all the good things in the world. And that's like asking. When you hunger for something, you're asking for it. You're pleading. Do you have to plead? Technically, no. God will bless you anyway. He's not cruel. But if you don't ask, you don't get to cultivate the blessing you receive and turn it into a bigger blessing, which that's our part. The feminine part is to receive graciously and turn it into something more than it started off being. The sages say, man brings home wheat. The woman turns it into bread. A man builds a house. A woman turns it into a home. That's called cultivating. That's called the feminine quality of nurturing. You take something good and make it infinitely better. So the good is coming from God, and we have to turn that goodness into sweetness. So you have a good, sweet year.
We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.